Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Pianist Academy and Happy New Year. I'm Charles Szczepanek. I know many of you that are here this morning or this afternoon for some of you, so good day. Welcome. I don't know if Bachward's Fellow is here. Bachward's Fellow left the first note in the chat, but it was long before the stream started today. So if you are here, Bachward's Fellow, welcome. Otherwise, SA opera singers, welcome. I believe is it Johan? And Rob, welcome Rob, Becky, Antonio, C Drive, good to see all of you. Lori as well, welcome back. Alexis, Nancy, Jess, Budlington Groomer, hey. It's good to see all of you. How was your new year? Have you recovered from all of your holiday festivities? Have you had time to practice? All those good things. How's it going? Antonio did send in a question that we're going to start with, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's just have a minute and catch up first. Yeah. How is your musical New Year going? And I see, Becky, you said you've got your desk rehauled for doing some work in Dorico. Wonderful, wonderful. Great stuff. Becky, you said too many new things. But wow to new things. That's good. And Laura, you say you started the year with my course on the Beethoven bagatelle. Wonderful. Lori, have you finished the course? Have you gone all the way through it? And how far along are you on the piece? Are we going to get a chance to hear you play it on one of these streams sometime soon? That would be really cool. Jess, yesterday was a good practice day. Wonderful. By the way, I started the stream today with my performance of Claire de Lune because a great friend of the channel, Frederick Viner, used my performance in a video talking about not new, but 300 IQ moments in music. It's a new video. All of the music that's featured, the three pieces that are featured, are not new. Been around for a long time. But he was gracious enough to like my recording a lot and want to feature. It's only about like 5 or 10 seconds that gets played in the video, but I'm really grateful to Fred for sharing that. If you have a chance, go and check out Fred's channel and that new video. Really cool stuff. And he co-presents with Ben Lottie, and I can't remember the other lady's name. I want to say Mimi, but I might be wrong. But I think she has a relatively new channel. So anyway, you might be introduced to another new piano teacher online that you might really like. So go check that video out. Lori, you say the goal in a month or two. Sweet. Great. To perform the bagatelle, maybe for us. And absolutely, I will be happy to answer any questions about it today. Wonderful. Hello, Raphael. Welcome. I take it you're in Santa Barbara. Great to see you. I hope it's a wonderful day there. Wonderful. Well, I didn't hear from a couple others of you, so I hope your practice is going well. I hope your new year has started off really nicely. So let's kick things off. Antonio asked me a question via email. Not really a question, but kind of just a reaction. And I thought maybe I would feature a little bit of the playing that he sent over on the stream. Hopefully, it doesn't knock me out of having the stream be public. But worst case, I should be able to trim it out when for the replay if I need to. So, Antonio sent over a couple videos of an Italian jazz pianist, Francesca Tandoi. And before I get into the rest of the discussion, I think I'd just like to share a little bit of the playing. I'm going to make sure it's on YouTube, so I'm just going to make sure hopefully we don't see any ads or anything. Looks like it's going to be okay. So there's a bit of, I'm going to skip around in the performance. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but there's a piano solo intro, and she's playing with like a jazz combo. So there's a piano solo intro, and then I think I'm going to skip to the actual solo in the middle of the tune. And I would love to hear everybody's reaction about her, especially her style of playing. So that's what we're going to be listening for. Okay, fingers crossed. I think this is all going to work for us. Okay, here we go. Here's a little bit of Francesca playing a cover of a Stevie Wonder tune, Overjoyed. Skip forward. We'll hear more of the combo in just a second. She's got a lovely voice. But let's jump to the solo. Here we go. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, C Drive. You say production quality seems high. Is it sponsored by Yamaha? She might be a Yamaha artist. Antonio could probably tell us a little bit more. I think Antonio's a fan. A lot of jazz players are Yamaha artists. But yeah, really, really nicely produced video. Both video and audio. Quality of it. Hey, Bethany. I see, Raphael, I see your comment. That's very funny. Okay. Yeah, Lori said cool stuff. Hey, Sandy. Oh, okay. Sandy, not you. Yeah. Hey, you know, that type of jazz isn't everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. Jess, you say very relaxed hands. Love the boots. Nice. Yes, Antonio, yeah. The live video you sent over, she also plays Yamaha. Yeah. I don't know. I would look it up, but I would bet she'd be a Yamaha artist. Becky says, love that song. And you heard it at Jazz Corner a month ago. And very nice. Very nice. Okay, what about some reactions from all of you about the technical approach to playing? And the quality of her tone. So the quality of the recording itself is really good. But what do you think about the tone of her playing, the tone of the instrument? They might go a little hand in hand. And her technical approach. If you need a refresher, I wish there were more angles of just her hands. They kind of flash back and forth. But if we need a refresher, I'm happy to rewind a little bit and take another listen through a couple of those parts. But any thoughts? I want to save mine and not share what Antonio thought until we all have a chance to express our opinion. Okay, Becky said, see and hear again. Yep. Yes, Alexis, we listened to a little bit. Why don't we go back and we'll listen to So now that we know that we're going to pay attention especially to the technical execution and what's going on in especially the wrist, the bridge, the fingers, etc., whenever we get a chance to see it. And then how does that translate to our ears and the sound? Do we like the sound? What do we think of it? Can we describe the color? All of those things. Okay, so I've rewound a little bit and let's listen again. Okay. Thoughts? Alexis, one day you'll be able to improvise like that. I certainly hope so. It would be a lot of fun. I wish I could improvise like that. Hey, Rhodesy, welcome back. Happy New Year. Yes, this is our first stream of January. It's our first stream in a month. So welcome back. Good to see you. Okay. Essay opera singers. Johan, you say tone is very percussion-like. Okay, so percussive, that's what you heard. Reactions, so let's hear everybody's reactions about the tone and about the execution, the technical execution. Do we notice anything about the shape of the hand or how the hand was used to play different types of passages? How, might be hard to be concise enough in a chat comment, but we're gonna see if we can make this work. Bethany, you say, very clear sounding and sparse pedaling. Absolutely true. Yeah, sparse pedaling, especially for all of the little runs. I don't know what key she's in. Maybe E flat. So yeah, very, very, very crisp. Lots of detached runs, yeah. Isabel, hello, Isabel. Oh yeah, I will get to the Shem method. Yeah, I will get to your question after we do this little segment here, for sure. That's a great question, Isabel. We're gonna have a lot of fun going into that one. Jess, you thought that her tone is very bright and bell-like. Jess, those are great non-partial statements. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you feel like you don't have a strong opinion, but it's just, that's what it is, how you described it? Lori, you say quite active, maybe even aggressive fingers at times, not aggressive in a bad sense, okay? Becky. Yeah, Becky, that's okay. We're being judgmental, and that's, we're trying to learn though. That's really what it is. She's a great player, and she obviously has a great following. Let's just say I like the music a lot, but we're analyzing it to learn from it and to just dive a little bit deeper. Her hands, so Becky, you say her hands look calm, rounded, a little low, okay. Sounds a little flat. Interesting. Alexis, yes, bossa nova jazz that you've heard in the past. Great. Rhodesy said it was good. Good stuff. Yeah, Becky, what you said, you're comparing her to another pianist. And that's, we're all human. That's part of what we're actually doing in this whole process is we're saying we all have like a library of pianists that we know and we like, and we can kind of remember how they play and what they play like, especially if we revisit them a lot. And that's all our basis of comparison. And as we, develop our tastes, we probably will tend to gravitate towards similar pianists that express things in a similar way because we like it. Yep. We're going to get more into that in a second. But yeah, that's what we do. We're just comparing. That's how we can even have this discussion, is because we're comparing to other things that we know. Alexis say, could the bright tone be partially due to the piano being Yamaha? Yes. Johan, not a fan. Okay. Jess did like it. For how much was going on, it was very calm. Becky, yeah, okay. We're on the same page. Yeah, for sure. And Rhodesy, rhythm in, okay, the Chopin C-sharp minor waltz. We'll talk about that. Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. Hey, Eric, welcome. I will try to remember, Eric, that you are E to the RP. Is that your screen name? E to the RP? Okay, so Alexis, yeah, not your favorite, but you think that she was quite successful in what she was going for. Great. Sandy says flexible wrists, hand alignment, really, really good. Awesome. Okay. Antonio, let's come back to you. You've been biting your tongue for a while. I know, Antonio, you said a little bit of what you think of her playing in the email to me, but can you let us know just a couple words of your opinion about the playing, and then I will share my thoughts. Hey, Nico. Great to see you. Good to see you. Nico, I'm not sure if you just tuned in, we were doing a little bit of listening to a jazz pianist, and we're kind of analyzing her technique and tone. So we've already listened twice. If you need to back up to see a little bit of it on the stream, feel free to do that, because I probably won't play it again. We're almost finished with everybody sharing, and I'm going to, soon as Antonio chimes in. Oh. And Antonio, while you're writing, I'm going to see if I can find a freeze frame of a couple things. Maybe not. Ooh, that one might be pretty good. Antonio, you say what struck you is how effervescent her sound is, the lightness of her touch, the way she makes the strings resonate, a guitar-like quality. Okay, great. And C Drive, you say her tone was good, her hands were a little flat. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing that I want to highlight about everybody's comment is that there are a lot of feelings that go in very different directions. And for all of you, you're all correct in a way, I think. We all have those opinions because of the music that we gravitate toward and the sound that we gravitate toward. We're all unique, right, in those ways. It's similar to like choosing a piano that you purchase, whatever piano you have, or if you play on a digital keyboard, what sample library do you like to play on? Like, that's a personal preference. And some of you are going to like something that's a bit brighter and harder sounding, and others want something really, really round and warm. So there's not one that's worse or wrong than another. It's just a personal preference. So I think, Antonio, you and I think have very opposite opinions about it. So I say that after everything I just said, that opinions aren't right or wrong. They're just opinions, right? So Antonio, you said like her sound is effervescent. To me, that, yeah, and you kind of describe it, lightness in touch. My perception of the sound is quite aggressive most of the time, and quite brilliant and punchy. And I really like that in jazz playing, especially if it's in a group like what she's playing, who she's playing with. You kind of need some of that. You need it to make it really sing and poke out of the texture. We don't want things to get buried by, the other instruments aren't playing, they're not overplaying, they're really, really good players. But, right, we want certain things to be heard. The spot that I really agree with you, Antonio, is her left hand is almost always just so nicely tucked into the background and comping and doing whatever she's doing most of the time. Oh, yeah. Really, really nice and light and not getting in the way tone. It's just adding this little bit of support. Kind of, I'd say, really, really working well with the bass player. But all of the solo stuff, I found most of it extremely we'll just say bright. To me, she has a very good classical technique. There was everything she plays, like a couple of people mentioned, her hands were super relaxed on the keyboard. Every note just incredibly easy. Sometimes the fingers were flatter, especially during like scale-like passages. The fingers were more flat, which I'm going to come back to in a second. But other times there was a really nice curve. And she actually struck a lot of notes in a way that I think is similar to the technique we talked about in the last stream last month, where there is like a flick and a throwing of the finger. And that's not all classical schools are like that, but I think of that as a very classical approach. And it does lend itself to being interpreted in one of two ways. Aggressive, it might be called aggressive by some, or bell-like by others. And it'll be the same tone heard by two different people. And usually aggressive is kind of a negative description and bell-like is a positive one, right? But it's this kind of, wrong pedal. That kind of tone where there's a lot of throwing of the fingers. Sometimes though, and I don't know what scales she did, but I'm gonna throw this freeze frame on the screen. Sometimes we got a hand position like this, and the fingers are really quite flat. The wrist is a little high, but she's on the black keys. There looks like her right hand second finger is really extended, and she's probably going to play that finger next. Maybe it's the third finger. A little hard to tell. Yeah, but yeah, there's like no curve left between the bridge and the fingertip. And that reminds me a lot of Horowitz's style. So again, there's a classical pianist that I think plays in a similar way with really stretched out fingers and a more finger. In this case, there's less of that throwing from the wrist and more finger movement. Like, if I zoom in on me doing that, it's kind of like that. And when you play like this, the part of the finger that actually makes contact with the key, if you can kind of see fourth finger there, it's really the pad of the finger and not the tip of the finger, like we get with a more curved position of the hand. And so the really cool thing about playing and being able to switch between, we'll call them like two different techniques depending on the passage, is what she's doing is, I think, on purpose. She's choosing one technique to play and really get that punchiness out, and then she switches technique and goes instead from the throwing to a more flat approach when she wants a softer sound. And that's a cool thing. That's something I don't see a lot of classical players do, is switch their approach to playing passages depending on the color that they want. Usually everything is played with the same technique, but we try to achieve different color. All that to say, Antonio, I liked it. And I think the biggest thing that why I wanted to share it on the stream and have everybody react is because our opinions to hearing the same thing can be so dramatically different. But Antonio, I don't think I would never call her touch light. And I said I was going to come back to stuff about the piano. It might be because she's playing on a Yamaha, and it might be a really bright Yamaha. And if that's the case, then the piano is not helping that at all. If anything, it's exaggerating that type of the tone, and I'm maybe more sensitive to that. But this part that was lighter was when she was doing this flatter finger thing, I thought. So Antonio, I hope you appreciate the discussion. All of the opinions are good. Yeah. Any other comments about this, about the performance, about the technique? Any questions about any of that? Anything I chatted about or anything else before we kind of take questions from everybody the rest of the time today? And yeah, Lori and Eric, I see your questions about the Beethoven. We will get there. Cool. Anything else from anybody? If we're good, I'll give us another like 10, 15 seconds, and we can wrap up and move on to a couple of the other questions that have already come in. Okay? If there isn't anything else, Antonio, thanks for, again, broadening our horizons here and sending us another performer that was definitely not familiar with. I would think most of the other people here would not have been familiar with her playing. And it was a really lovely performance. I like it. I like jazz in that style. I like all kinds of jazz. I wish I could improv like that. And she has that kind of smoky voice that reminds me a little bit of Diana Krall. So, yeah. Okay, I take it. No more questions. So we're going to move on. Okay. I'm going to go back to the top because I know we had a couple pop in, or at least one pop in early today. Let's see. I think it was... Where is it? I think it was Isabel. I think, Isabel, you had the very first question. And Rhodesy, as a side note, I see your comment, your latest comment. I like big band jazz, yeah, for sure. I used to actually go all the time. I hope my stream is doing okay. I'm really fuzzy on my end. Yeah, I used to actually go and hear big band like every couple of months when I lived in the Chicago area. It was a lot of fun. It was live big band. I don't know where that happens anymore. Hey, Frederick! Speak of the devil. I talked about your new video, Frederick, at the beginning of the stream today. So I hope people here go and check it out. It was a really great video. Love all of the 3 analyses that were featured. So thanks for being here, Fred. Antonio, you say that you heard Francesca play on a Decibel keyboard. Very, very neat. I've played on one once at a trade show. Wasn't the greatest. I couldn't really hear, but it felt really good to play. Okay, cool. All right, let's jump back to Isabel's question. So let me find it again. Isabel, you said, question about the Shem method that I have that video about. When playing eyes closed, should I see the score or should I see the keyboard? Great. Okay, so let's review just real quick. Everybody here, what can you tell me? What does the Shem method stand for? It's an acronym. What does each letter stand for? You've all seen the video, right? And Fred, yes, one of these days I would love to be in one, and hopefully we'll make that happen this year. Okay, yeah. SHEM. What do they stand for? Anybody? Becky, you're close. You got 2 of them right. We'll just let everybody chime in for a second. S-H-E-M. Okay. Isabel. Okay, great. Isabel, I'm glad. I'm glad. We got the order mixed up slightly, but yes, all of those words are correct. And Rob, great. Yes. Okay. Rob, we got those all correct. So, score, hands, eyes, mind. Yeah. And that relates to the type of practice that we're doing for each method. Score, hands, eyes, mind. And usually we need to go in that order. Sometimes we need to revisit previous steps in order to help us get to the next one, right? So, okay, if Isabel, your question was especially when you're practicing the eyes closed part. So that would be the the third step. So score, and then hands, and then eyes. So when we're practicing eyes closed or eyes looking away. So eyes not engaged in the process. Eyes closed is the best because we eliminate the visual sense completely, but even eyes looking away, that's how I initially started to use this process before I coined it or came up with it officially. I was looking over here, if you've seen the video, right? I used to practice and I'd look up, there was a painting on the wall over here, and I'd just like stare at it and do a lot of practice. And I didn't realize how valuable that was to eliminate. And I wasn't really like mentally engaged with looking at the painting. It was just something that was a quasi distraction. Anyway, okay. The eyes. When the eyes are closed, do we visualize the score or the keyboard? And the answer, Isabel, is be able to do both. Depends on exactly what you want to practice. But if our eyes are closed, if you needed to, for example, if you needed to renotate the score yourself on another piece of paper, could you do it without playing through the notes like physically? Could you do that? So that's part of the question. When the eyes are closed, can you see the score? It's another reason why I love working with just one edition or one copy of scores as you're practicing and as you play, because sometimes, well, all the time when you're working with different editions, measures appear in different places and they look different. And it can be strange, maybe the best quick description, disconcerting also, to see two different representations of the same music. Not different notes, but a different font in a different place on the page. So I think it's really important to always practice from the same score. Yeah. And then we can also take like little snapshots of what the score looks like. Okay. Is that part, it is important, and I think we should be able to do that with eyes closed. However, do that with eyes closed while you're not at the keyboard. So that's one of your steps when you're practicing eyes closed away from the keyboard, which means mentally. So when we combine mental practice with eyes closed practice, use that. However, when we're at the keyboard and we're practicing eyes closed, visualize the keyboard most of the time. We want it to feel like, as we're playing, that we can, in a sense, see what our hands are doing just as vividly with our eyes closed as we can if they were open. I'm gonna just try something. I haven't practiced it this way, but I have. I was practicing before our stream, and I've got one of my arrangements pulled up. That's on my program. That's in about a week and a half. And I'm gonna play the first couple bars, and I'm gonna try to play them eyes closed, which I have not done. So, here we go. But in the process of doing this, I'm trying to visualize the keyboard. So when my eyes close, I can still see, for example, middle C is right there, and I could do that eyes closed. If I need to find the octave, there's the octave and the octave. Great, here's the low D that begins the piece. I'm doing all that eyes closed because it feels like a little bit of a guess, But my visual memory of what the keyboard looks like and where I'm sitting is so strong that I can still find that almost as well with eyes closed as with eyes open. Okay. So let's see, we've got some big jumps. Just so that you can see that I'm actually doing this eyes closed, I'm going to play this segment, these first couple bars, without the score on the screen. So here we go. This one's really hard. Okay. That's a lot of jumping around to be able to do that eyes closed, right? But most of the time that it was mostly successful because I was still able to see around the keyboard. And if I did more practice like that, I'd get even better. But I've got, you know, that first note I have to jump with the left hand. 1, 2, 3. I have to jump 4 octaves. So even looking up here is similar. Jump again. And A. Yeah. Now, that's not as fluent as it needs to be for performance, but I'm also not going to have my eyes closed when I perform it. Yeah. Okay, so Isabel, do you have any follow-ups about that? As you write in, I'm going to continue talking, though. So when we're on the bench practicing eyes closed, visualize the keyboard, and not just the keyboard, but try to visualize all of the movements that your fingers and your hands are making. So can you see them just as well or just as vividly as you can if you're actually looking at what you're doing? Okay. Second part, though, and that's why we have to do this before we get to the next step, before we get to the mental practice step. Part of what we need to do when we mentally practice is close our eyes and still quasi-play the piece without moving our hands. And that mental practice is super valuable because we can do that anywhere. We don't have to be in front of the piano. Of course, you could do it during your practice time while you're here. And if you need that little like reminder of what the keyboard looks like, and okay, this is kind of what my hand looks like when I'm playing that passage, sure, go ahead and do that. But we can take that and we can take it away from the keyboard, and then we can still practice in just as meaningful of a way if we don't have access to a piano or we can't practice right now because it's too late or too early or we're traveling, right? I do mental practice when I'm on airplanes, flying places, especially before concerts, where I'm staying before my concert in a week and a half. I don't have a piano. So from the time I leave on Thursday, I think I'm going to have an hour to practice before I have to catch my flight Thursday, amid other things. That's going to be the last time I touch a piano until 45 minutes before doors open Friday night. I'm not going to not practice in the meantime, but I'm going to mentally practice. So I'm going to need to be able to close my eyes, visualize the keyboard, and know all of the actions. So that's why when we play eyes closed and we're still allowed to feel everything, then when we have to take that away, when we have to take away the movement, we still know what it feels like and we can still trigger all of that in the mind without actually moving our hands, without playing the instrument. That's really, really incredibly powerful. So, and of course, Isabel, as you, and for everybody, as you're progressing through that method, let's go through the 4 steps one more time quickly. And yeah, Isabel, you say mental practice is so hard. It is extremely taxing. But if you do it, it tells you where you really know your music and where you really don't. And there's almost like no in between. If you really know it, You're going to be able to hear it and audiate it in your mind, and you're going to be able to see the keyboard in front of you as you mentally practice, and you're going to be able to feel the movement as if you're playing. And if you don't know it, it's not going to be like, there is no difference. It's like a digital signal. It doesn't get fuzzy. It just is gone. It's completely blank. And what we want, especially if you're preparing for any kind of performance, is we want to be able to mentally practice everything without any of those blank moments, right? So if you can get through everything mentally, and you have that ability to focus that deeply, you're going to give a good performance. And it's going to feel really secure on stage, right? If you aren't able to do that, that's the thing about performance, is you don't know where problems are going to creep up, right? And sometimes what we want to avoid is the problems creeping up when we're in that high pressure situation. And when we're performing, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're playing for friends or family, or playing for an exam, or playing, in a public recital, or in my case, a ticketed concert next week. We don't want that moment. We don't want to be surprised by anything. And part of what we can use mental practice for is to completely eliminate surprises that happen in those high pressure situations, because the spots where your mind goes blank, where you don't know, those are going to be the spots that when you have those nerves and the anxiety around playing and your brain is flying a million miles a minute, those are going to be the spots where you have problems on stage. And so it's a perfect way, no matter how comfortable you are in your practice, it's the perfect way to find out where those problems are. So it's super, super powerful. Let's do a quick review. When we practice with the score, right, we're looking at the score, we're making notes about what we see harmonically, what we see, what's scalar movement. It's actually really similar to what you should do in your sight reading, right? We should be taking mental notes. What note do we start a passage on? How does the passage move? And how can we describe that in as comprehensive but simple of a way as possible? Like the beginning of this arrangement. It looks complicated, but it's really not. It's in D, the arrangement's in G, but we start on the 5 chord on D. Everything else here, the first bar is all a D major scale. And then, now we change chords. And we have some skips as we move to E, and that E, it's really E7 that's outlined. So, for example, when I would look at that, if I was just refreshing the piece, I would be thinking about those things. Scale, arpeggio, what scale are we in? And then start to feel, while we're looking at the score, how does it feel for the hands to do this movement? Yeah. Then when we look down at the hands, we're starting to program in what the hands look like while they play, which is so important, because it leads to eyes closed and it leads to mental practice. And most of the time, if you're doing something where you have to play from memory, or I find myself saying this more and more. I do practice sessions in my membership group. And so I practice. We have one a week, every week. It's a little pitch for the group, but okay. We all get together and we practice together, but I film mine and I post my practice with all my narration about my thought process and everything else every time we have one of these. And I find myself more and more, especially as I'm preparing for this concert next week, there are passages all over the place, even though I'm going to be playing with the score on stage. That's not a problem. It's not a traditional classical event. Even though the score is up and I've got all the notes in front of me, there are lots and lots of passages I cannot look at the music and play at the same time. They have to be memorized. And I'm going to do a video about this, because there are so many things floating around online about not looking at your hands while you play. Sometimes it's important to not do that. It is. But watch any classical pianist in a non-collaborative setting. They're always looking at their hands. So it's really important to know what your hands look like while you play. It's really important. In fact, we don't want to have something where even let's say, okay, you're playing from a score and you're playing in public or something like that, and you get the score. And then you have to make a jump, right? Like in the first bar of this. We don't want the visual of looking down to see where our hand goes to be unfamiliar. It should be really, really, really familiar. Not like our eyes are glued up here and we have to do it. Because as soon as you change that in performance, as soon as you look from here down, you might say, I've never seen that before. And as soon as you have that happen mentally, it'll be like you've never heard or practiced the rest of the bar. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so looking down at the hands, we start to test our memory, and we start to test memory because we can no longer look at the score. We start to test the memory right away, and it's incredible. It's an incredibly powerful tool for learning really, really quickly because it forces you to look for other clues and forces you to learn and to be not just to learn by rote, like the muscle memory, because you've repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. That's not good practice. But because you have to be so acutely aware of everything that's happening in order to piece the puzzle together, let's say, of what you need to play in measure 1, the first day you're learning it. I would say the first day you're learning a measure, you should be able to play measure 1, measure 2, measure 3 maybe, depending on the piece. You should be able to play some measures from memory on day 1, very first day, if you're practicing well. And the problem is, if you continue to keep your eyes glued up here, there's a good chance your brain isn't actually learning the muscle pattern. We have to learn the muscle pattern. Otherwise, we're almost in essence sight reading, like every time. And there's a big distraction when we sight read from the brain's connection to what we're actually doing. It focuses on the interpretation of the visual information rather than processing and imprinting the physical information. And what do we need to do when we recreate music? We have to physically play it. It doesn't come off the page unless we do something. Okay, you can tell I'm really passionate about this topic. Isabel, that was a great question to kick us off. Thank you so much. So yes, Isabel, you need to learn the keyboard for sure. Let's see, Becky, you say, I just answered that question, Becky. I will have sheet music the whole time for my performance. I'm not really, I've kind of distanced myself from that classical tradition of, I call it tradition in very loosely because it wasn't always that way, right? But of playing everything from memory. So, plus everything, literally everything on my program is mine. I wrote it. So, it's my music. I think I can choose to play it with the score or not. Yeah, not that you were throwing any shade, Becky, but I just know that's a point of contention among lots of classical players, playing with the score or not. So, yeah, I'll be playing with it. And Rotsi, you had a great follow-up. What is mental practice? Is it imagining how you play the music in your head? Yeah, that's part of it. The other part, we spent a lot of time about talking about the feel of what it is that we're playing and recreating the visual imagery with our eyes closed of what it is that we're playing. But just as important is hearing the byproduct in our mind without actually triggering the instrument, without hearing any sound, through our ears. We still need to imagine what every movement and the sound it creates. So that is also integral to mental practice. And that ties back in a great way because every note that you play at the piano, this is really advanced. So buckle up. Every note that we play at the piano, we should, in our inner ear, predict the sound of. But then once we play it, we also respond to the sound we just played. So every time a note is struck, let's go to something a little bit more lyrical in this piece. Every time a note is played, we have to feel the gesture as a whole and hear this phrase. But in the process of playing that, I am also hearing the tone and the dynamic and the way the legato connects and the shape of the phrase and all of that. I'm hearing it before the next note happens. But then, as soon as a note happens, I'm saying, is that note what I imagined it would be? Or is it not? And if it's different, I might need to change the trajectory of my phrase to match what just happened. So we're still responding to everything. Let me give you an example. Let's say my intention is to play quite softly, but maybe something happens in a performance and I jump and I land a little bit too heavily on that note. Well, in order to make it sound like a great phrase, there was nothing inherently unmusical about this, but it's not the same as that, which is wispy and within the texture, right? But if my intention was to play wispy, but what comes out is, I need to modify how I intend to play the rest of the phrase in order to make it work. So that's now what the phrase turns into. However, if that second note after the jump comes out the way I really intended it to, it's different. There's a different amount of rubato. There's a different dynamic. So, the audiation, and so Rhodesy, this came up because of your question about mental practice. And I brought up the audiation that also needs to happen in mental practice. But at a higher level, I know there are a couple of you here that definitely play at this level. You should be starting to both predict and respond to the tone that you make as you play. So, and Becky, what you just said, the people watching me would love both versions. And that's my goal. That's my goal, is that it'll sound like a mistake if I do. Where one note pops, and then I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant, and I need to play the rest of the phrase according to my original plan. If I stick to the original plan, it'll sound like a mistake. But if I respond, it won't sound like a mistake. It'll sound like they won't know any better. It's only me in my head that says, oh, that wasn't quite what I meant, but I can shape that. The audience will just hear a nice phrase. That's our goal, right? Oh. C-Drive, thanks for that. C-Drive says, don't forget to like the stream, hit that thumbs up, please. If you've already hit it, hit the thumbs up, hit it twice. Nancy, you say you've been telling yourself forever that you can't memorize music and you're really reliant on the score. So sometimes that memorization that we can struggle with, it is because, the challenge of playing from memory, and especially doing it early, is it could be overwhelming or it could be so uncomfortable that we don't want to do it. But it's those moments that are really uncomfortable that can be really, really eye-opening. And we can learn a tremendous amount. Absolutely, Isabel. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Okay. Great stuff. Rhodesy, you say, for you personally, it feels stranger, but more free playing your own music than classical repertoire. Yeah. I agree with that. And it also depends on the audience that you're playing for. If at all you're playing in public, or you're playing for a teacher, or you're playing for a group of music students, it can be really easy to feel pressure to play the repertoire a certain way. And that can be intimidating in its own way, right? So, yeah. If you aren't somebody that writes your own music and you're here, try writing a couple things. It'll really change your perspective, I think, on the music you study and what you can do with it. Remember, all of the great composers, well, I'm calling them great composers first, but a lot of them were great pianists. We think of maybe Chopin, we think of as both a great composer and great pianist. But yeah, a lot of them played their own work. And there are extremely few people that tour today that play their own compositions. Most of the classical world today is recreating those great works of the past, and there just aren't very many people like that are playing new work. And so what I do is a little different. It's not exactly, I wouldn't really call it, some of it leans more classical than others, but yeah. Okay. And Rhodesy, you say, also writing helps with sight reading. Absolutely. Yes. If you're one of my private students, pay attention to what Rhodesy just said, because it sounds like something I say in lessons. Okay, great. Let's jump back. So let me find that question. And then we had two questions about Beethoven, the Bagatelle Opus 119. And in the meantime, I think we also had one other question from Alexis. We're going to jump to Alexis's question first, and then we're going to come back around to the two questions from two of you that were about the Beethoven, and we'll address those together. If you could, by the way, I think that was Lori and Eric. If you could have those questions kind of ready to repost in the chat, that would be super helpful for me when we get there. Okay. Let's see. Alexis, okay, you say, you've gone through a long break from seriously and consistently practicing, and your playing now sounds horrible. Okay, well, how do you recommend that you get back into the swing of things? Okay, well, Alexis, first of all, be kind to yourself. It's probably not horrible. It's probably not as good as it was, and that's okay, but it's probably not horrible. So that's the first thing. Don't be too hard on yourself when you're coming back after a break. And just say, okay, I recognize that playing and practicing is something that has to be done consistently in order, not just to make progress, but just to keep things where they are. There still has to be a level of consistency. And if there's not, we just accept that, okay, things have taken some steps backward, and that's okay. We've done the work already. So just imagine instead, I don't have to redo everything that I already learned. Okay, how much easier is it going to be this time to figure that out? I don't have to figure it out. I already know what works to get these pieces or these passages better because I've already been through the process. So think about how much faster it's going to go. Okay, one thing. And secondly, Alexis, if it's really been a long time that you haven't played, it can take a little bit of time just to get your hands and the playing mechanism used to doing what it was doing. So don't jump in and start with the same technical challenges that you were practicing and those particular pieces that you were studying. Maybe don't start right there, especially if they were technical pieces. But say, okay, I'm going to play some lyrical things, things that move a little bit more slowly. I'm going to start by working on my tone and my expression, and then I'm going to start to incorporate my technique practice, scales and arpeggios and whatever, if you have etudes that you're studying, etc. And as I start to increase speed with those, I'm going to also start to re-enter. If I want to play repertoire I've already studied and rekindle it and bring it back, then we're going to start bringing back that harder repertoire, and we're also going to start adding new things. But in order to keep you interested, go back to some things that you've already played that aren't excessively difficult. And then slowly add in the things that are the big, big technical challenges, because it's really normal for the hand to not be able to execute stuff anymore. Whatever pinnacle we've reached, right? So let's say, for example, for anybody, if you achieved playing your scales in 16th notes at 120 beats per minute to the quarter note, and then you take 2 months off, the day you come back, you're not going to be able to play your scales. Not well, you're not going to be able to play them well, because that is the very pinnacle of what you've achieved so far. So knock some notches off the tempo and work on being consistent and playing with good articulation, and it will come back and you'll get there quite quickly, right? On the flip side, for example, let's say we'll take the same number. Let's say you've practiced your scales and you've reached 120 beats per minute, and it was good, and you take 2 months off. We should be able to probably play them at like 90 to 100. So we're taking 20-ish, 25% off of our max tempo and saying, okay, I expect myself to really be able to do this. And if it's a little hard, it'll be a good challenge, but it shouldn't be so fast that we can't, right? So that also puts us a little bit in context of like, when we take that big break, how much are we going to lose? Everything's relative, and everything revolves around the context that it is in. But if we say 20%, 30% of tempo or of technical agility, I think that's pretty normal after a long break. So don't get down about it. Yeah. And just do the work to bring it back, and it'll come back. In my own life, I don't have time to stay like concert ready all year long. I don't have concerts to play every week or every couple weeks. And there's a reason why I haven't posted a whole lot of videos here in the last few months. And that's because amid all the things I do all the time, I've had to practice like 1 to 2 hours a day, every day. And that is all of the time that I had to create videos for the channel. And so that's why that's just like not happening. I haven't posted a video since the week before Christmas. At least there have been some shorts that have come out from other, related topics to videos I've already done. But there hasn't been a new long form video. And it's just because being concert ready takes time. And I don't have the time to keep it there all year long. So right now it's really important. Other things have to take a backseat. But when that concert's over, I'll maintain things, pretty well. But it's not going to be, I'm not going to be able to whip a piece out and say, oh, like, I'm going to go play this really difficult thing tomorrow after not playing it for, like, not practicing it for 4 weeks. That won't happen. And practicing it is very different than, like, taking a run through here and there. So, yeah, Johan says muscle memory contributes a lot after a break. It does. And that's what'll help you get back into things very quickly. Yeah. Okay. Rhodesy, that was a cool comment. Try to think about it like coming out of retirement and training again. Yeah, that's a neat idea. Okay, let's move on to Beethoven. And Lori and Eric, do you have your 2 questions? Could you repost those? I'll pull up our score. Lori, you're ready to go. Awesome, thank you. And Eric too. Wonderful, okay. So Lori first, interpretation of the Dolce section. You'd like to pursue a big contrast between the A section and Dolce, and you're trying to find different ways of getting a sweet sound out of the piano. Okay? You say, at the moment, your focus includes staying close to the keys, avoiding strong attacks, trying to move between chords as smoothly as possible. And are those things good? Are there any other hints or tips? Great. So Lori will tackle that first, and then Eric's question is about the turn ornament. Okay, great. So here's our score. So we can hear a little bit of the contrast. I'll just play a little bit. The B section comes down here at measure 17. I'll just take it from the middle of the A section. So I'm going to start at the second statement, right about there, and continue on, just so everybody here can hear the difference in the composition and then the things that we're trying to highlight. Dolce. So that's the first statement of Dolce. Okay. Let's just, Lori, you could reflect on this with us as well, but open to everybody. What is the biggest difference that we hear, that we perceive as you listen to when I play this, between the end of the A section and when we change keys to E major and when we get this? So let me go back and play that again. What are the biggest differences? Okay, what do we think? Eric says articulation. Yes, that is it's a lot to do with it, articulation. What else? You say, Laura, you say, is it the composition or do you slow down the tempo a tad? Is it just the composition or do you slow down the tempo? I think the tempo is close, but I lean into something slightly slower. So in other words, the tempo pushes slightly through some of these other arpeggios earlier. And then it rounds out and then hangs out on the slower side of what that tempo was. So I would think about it as around, you wouldn't be able to put a metronome to it, but it's close. Keep our BPM the same. And we're going to lean forward in rubato through the A section. That's one possible interpretation to help show this contrast. Lean forward in the A section and lean back in B or the dolce. So good. That's another discovery. What else? There's one, it's similar to what Eric brought up when you said articulation, but we can describe it better. There's one really, really stark difference. Can anybody figure out what that is between and? Oh, yeah, Rotsi, I forgot your question, but thanks for posting that again. I will definitely go there. All right, thoughts? I'll give us another few seconds. And then I'll answer the question for us. I ask a lot of questions when I teach, and I usually wait for, depending on how quickly it happens, I usually wait for my student to tell me, I don't know. As long as it's not, I don't know without thinking at all. But as soon as we say, I can't figure it out, then happy to answer. Okay, I will answer. Okay, Eric, you're on the right track. Apart from the tempo, it just feels like the notes are attached as opposed to the first section. How are they being attached? That's going to give us our answer. So in the first section, sometimes there's legato. That's all legato. Left hand, though, is not. Whoopsies. So sometimes there's legato. I'm trying to obey the slurs where they're presented by Beethoven. Yeah? The big change is there is no pedal in most of the A section. So it's very clean. And then dolce, both pedals. And then we have to be really careful on the next page. We have these two-note slurs. And we can't mask those by putting the pedal down. We still have to show those slurs. But we can still use pedal. It doesn't have to be completely dry. So I can go back. I'll mark a little bit of the pedal here. But again, like I talk about in the course on the piece, for Lori and Eric, I know you both have it. There isn't just one way to interpret this. And that's part of the beauty of the piece, is that so many of these measures are left kind of blank. There isn't much direction given. Okay. So when I pedal this, I like to use pedal, pedal, actually, I don't pedal there. So pedal, pedal on the F, and then I don't pedal again. It's just blurred on purpose, and I sing the melody out with a finger articulation, and then new pedal, and then pedal, pedal. Probably, depending on how particular you want to be about showing that rest. Whoa, there's the right note. I would take a third pedal there. But there's a lot of sustain. Yeah, so Lori said, your teacher asked if you'd like to try it with some pedal. And you told her you didn't think it would be appropriate. Yes, absolutely pedal it. And that pedal, is a huge, gives us a huge change in color naturally without a lot of effort, right? We get that really crisp, clear tone in the beginning, not necessarily non-legato, detached in some ways, maybe legato in other ways. But then the pedal creates a roundness in the sound that's impossible to play with without the pedal being used at all. So it's an instant change in color. We just have to be careful that things don't get too blurry, which is why sometimes we're taking bars with a pedal on every quarter note. And Lori, also, don't feel like you can't use the una corda. You absolutely could if you wanted to. Or you could use una corda the first time through Dolce. I'll finish let's see. And then no una corda. So first time with, second time without, you could flip that around and experiment with the color, right, that the una corda grants you. As far as finger articulation goes, yes, Lori, I think you're onto the right idea with playing close to the keys. But we don't have to sit with our fingertips right on them. Bye-bye, Becky. Lori, we don't have to sit with the fingertips right on them. And every time, if you've really paid attention, every time I go to this high C, I play it with a lift and a kind of a rotation. Yeah. And that's to help me sing that note out on top of the texture, even though the pedal is still employed. It's across both beats. And then the pedal's held. And I want that C, I want the ear to be guided to that upper C. So I do need more finger articulation, or I need to play it out a little bit more. Yeah? So that's just keeping our ear engaged with the line while the pedal's being used, instead of... It's easier to hear the C if we don't pedal at all, and we can play it. Yeah. Lori, here's another thing to think about when adding damper pedal. If you look at what's notated here, if you don't play any pedal in this section, so this could kind of be an answer to the question, how do I know to use pedal here versus not use it at the beginning? The style, I'm going to erase all my pedal markings for now. The style of this left hand is completely different. It's very sustained because many of them are dotted half notes. They fill the entire bar. Versus if we look earlier, we're given staccato articulation at the very beginning, but a lot of this is shorter rhythms, quarter notes, etc., and there are more rests everywhere. Yep. Okay. So looking down the page, the style of the composition itself is changed, and it's become much more sustained in the left hand. If I don't use pedal, in order to move from this bar, this is bar 18, in order to move from 18 into 19, if I'm not using pedal, there's going to be a break. We could, 5 has to come up, no matter how well we connect, and we connect, let's say, second finger to thumb, and then adding the third finger here. No matter how well we do that, we're going to hear 5 need to lift and play again. Same thing, next chord, 5 has to lift and then play again. Right? And then if we are obeying not the tie here, but if we are obeying that note is restruck, then we also change fingers. So in every one of those bars now, there's going to be, if we don't use pedal, there's a break. Whoops. So there'll be a break in the tone, and then there'll be another break in the tone, and there's no rest marked. We have to use pedal to get rid of those. Yeah. Rotzi, did Beethoven even know of the pedal as we do today? The pedal was around, things that I've read about Beethoven are generally that he used more pedal than we think he did today. I believe it's a writing from Czerny that talks about it, that Beethoven used lots of pedal, actually, to aid in the color of the sound and to aid in sustain. Things were not crispy. But Czerny was, I think, writing in regard to the fact that there isn't a lot of Beethoven that has pedal markings. And there's a general consensus today among pianists that Beethoven should be ultra clean. But Beethoven's not Mozart. He learned by learning kind of not directly from Mozart, but he studied a lot of Mozart's music. But as his own style developed more, there's a lot more pedal used. And the fact that one of Beethoven's most well-known students could write and say Beethoven actually used quite a lot of pedal, we have to ask, well, what did that mean in the time and what does that mean today? To really get a great answer. But I think it means truly we could be more liberal with it than some people think today. It's still not romantic, and we still don't want to over-blur things. We don't want to over-blur harmonies, and we don't want to obscure things that are going on. But we shouldn't be afraid to use the pedal at all. And it shouldn't be nearly as sparingly used as it is in Mozart. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Okay. Lori, great. I'm glad. Hopefully that gets you on the right track with continuing to show this contrast between the opening section and what comes later. Okay. Eric. Practicing the turn ornament. Okay. So here is that turn ornament, and this is the one that I have given. There are a couple different. I'm just going to work on the one I've given. There's at least one other way to play the turn, but we're not going to go into that right now. So, okay. Now that we see what the notes are. Eric, I would use some similar ideas to how you should practice anything else that needs crisper articulation. So let's start by forgetting that it's connected. And let's play it detached and with a good connection to the bottom of the key. And if you want to right now, let's feel each of those notes as their own entity. And try to play them all the same, with the same dynamic. Don't try to show a shape yet. We don't want the shape to be because of a technical thing or because of a problem. The shape kind of happens because of something we don't intend. Let's put it that way. We want the shape to be exactly what we intend. And so we can only know if we're able to execute what we intend, if we're able to first execute everything evenly. Can they all be even? And it's easier to do that at a medium to loud dynamic, and then progress to, can they all be even at a softer dynamic? Okay, and if you want to keep them detached through all that, great. Now let's transition. So once you've done the work there, let's talk about the gesture with the wrist that's involved in helping shape this into a legato phrase. So we should be dropping in, and we come a little bit kind of down and around to the right. So drop in, 3 comes over the top, back to 1. So that's the shape we intend. Down, a little bit to the right, over the top to the left, left, back to the right, down. Okay. Eric, do you have the Hand & Faber books? Because I guess it's just a single book. If you do, the gestures that are outlined, it's such a great book to work on. Hey, Broadway guy. Yeah, Eric, if you have that book, if you don't have the book, I would definitely get it. Because if you do, and you've worked on the gestures that are presented in that book, this is going to feel more natural. And if you haven't done it before, it's going to feel like a lot of foreign wrist movement in that one really, really little phrase. So it's the Hand & Faber revised virtuoso piano. I think that's close to the title. Yeah. The first 3 pages are the most important in the entire book. So you get to the crux of the stuff really, really quickly. And it will help everything I've just said make a lot of sense. But let me draw it on the score for you. Okay, sometimes the arrows aren't going to be in the direction we feel them. I'll explain that in a second. But for now, we drop on the first note. We make a lower motion that comes up through the second note. Then we come around and drop into, not drop, but we come around and over the top into the G. And then we make a lower circle. So this is the shape of the direction, let's say, that the wrist is moving. Okay, yeah, Broadway guy, yes. Yep. So you can see how many turns there are in the wrist through the ornament. The part that's the most confusing for people is that I'm going to highlight it in green. That gesture, it's an over wrist movement. So it's where the wrist comes over the top, like that. It isn't moving to the right. The wrist is actually moving to the left during the playing of that passage. But we have no way of showing left wrist movement while the notes have to continue right on the page. So don't let that little spot that's in green confuse you about the direction of the wrist. What's most important is that, let's go back a couple steps here. What's most important is that this is a down wrist circle, this is an up wrist circle, and this is a down or lower wrist circle. That's what we really want to take away. Okay, now we've transitioned from working on finger articulation, keeping it all even, okay, and then at a variety of dynamics, and now we're incorporating wrist gesture and working on playing that legato. And you can feel very free to come off the key at the end of the ornament. Take it nice and slow as you practice these couple things. And then if you want some added practice, it's tough to say. What you really should do, Eric, is see if there are certain fingers that aren't speaking consistently, or if there's a little hiccup in the ornament, where is it happening? And depending on where it is, this is Bagatelle Opus 119, number 1 in G minor, Plop Symphony. Welcome, by the way. So, Eric, if you do find there are specific notes, it's hard to address exactly what the problem is without seeing it. But instead of kind of prescribing one overarching approach to the passage, I would say, see if you can identify if there's, you say, 2 and 4, the A to the C. Okay. Hopefully then, as you work on the wrist circle here, what's happening is that as we play from 2 to 4, we're giving more support to 4 by playing from a higher position. So avoid, Eric, playing 4 from up here. That's not good. But avoid playing 4 down here as well. So if you're trying to play right now, if you're trying to play this whole ornament like that, 4 has very little support. But if we elevate on our way to 4 and then back to 3, we're giving 4 a lot more support. Yeah. That should help a lot, that articulation from 2 to 4. Cool. Good. Eric, see if you can, before you go to wrist circles, I'd still see can you play 4, and is 4 equal to all of the other fingers when you play detached and with a little bit more dynamic? And if it's not, then we need to work that out first. So we have more control of that finger articulation. And when we add the wrist circle doesn't take away, and this is one of the things that I think people that aren't fans of wrist movement tend to say, and it's true, wrist movement does not take away the fact that we have to still articulate with the fingers. We have to learn how to do that. And so we have to have, in a sense, we have to have a way of playing it really well without the wrist movement. It might not be the complete picture, but the wrist circle should be a way to elevate something that we've already trained pretty well. It's not going to fix clarity of articulation, except in the fact if the wrist circle is showing you how to support a particular finger better, like especially 4 and 5. That can help fix some articulation problems. But often, if there's too much focus given to only the wrist work, that happens. And it becomes just a mushy mess. So don't forget, always pair finger articulation with the wrist work, because they both need to be working together in order to play any passage really, really well. Cool. Eric, any other questions before we move on? Lori as well. Broadway guy, I know you're working on the same thing. Do you have any questions? Great. Wonderful, Eric. Okay, good. Both Lori and Broadway guy were good. Great. Okay, let's move on. Rhodesy had asked about, let's see, where is it? Chopin. Let's see, it was the waltz, right? Chopin waltz in C sharp. Oh, I thought for sure I had a copy of that on here. Let's see if it's in here. Nope, it's not, definitely not there. Huh. If I really can't find it, I will quickly find a score online. Rhodesy, we're talking about this one, right? So Rhodesy, that is this. Oh, that's Nocturne. No wonder I couldn't find it. No, yeah, I definitely don't have. Rhodesy, you're really into the waltzes. I have played very, very few of them. I've played many more of the Nocturnes. Okay, let me see if I can find a score for that quickly. Do you know? Oh, thank you. Oh, Opus 64, number 2. Oh. I do know that one very well. Okay, you want to talk about the D flat? It's all clicking now. What was your question, Rhodesy, about the middle section? While you post that, here's the piece we're talking about. Goes into how do you deal with the rhythm of the D flat section? It confuses you a bit, especially with the group of 8. Okay, so D flat is our really nice, this waltz is kind of in 3 parts, and it's a really nice juxtaposition of this beautiful lyric line. Okay, so second time, and you're having, okay, 2 questions, great. We'll cover both of those. And to quickly answer, let's see, Susie's question, there's a lot of great comments floating around there. I will answer more about the challenges I see with older students, and there are some of them here as they're chiming in. I have... let's see, I have about 20 private students, and I'd say 2/3 of them are over 60. So I'll come back to your question in a second. Okay. Okay, Rhodesy, let's first deal with the group of 8. So, okay, this is the second statement of this theme. It's in measure 84 on the score here. Here's where the theme begins, 3 bars prior. So there we go. Okay, Rhodesy, there are 2 approaches, one that I would highly favor and one that would kind of be a second, or I'd almost say last resort. The first one that I would highly favor, Rhodesy, is let's feel what tempo are we giving to approximately the bar, the whole bar, not the quarter note. So if it's 1, 1, so that's approximately, if we don't have any rubato, right? That's our tempo. Now, can you evenly divide this into 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Yeah? Yes. Yes, it is più lento, Rhodesy. So does più lento, it means, what does più lento mean, Rhodesy? Let's start there. Anybody can answer that. Yeah, Broadway guy, more slowly. Rhodesy, so the part you missed, Rhodesy, was you cued into the lento part alone. But più is a modifier. So it's more slowly than where we came from. And where did we come from? We came from più mosso, more movement, which generally, I mean, the tempo, you'll hear tons of different tempi through that section. From about here on the slow side to all the way up to there. Okay, so it's more motion. If we string this all together, section A establishes a tempo, kind of. There's a lot of push and pull. There's a tremendous amount of rubato, yeah? But then the B section says more movement. So the tempo changes. Then we get this D flat section that is more slowly. So we have to remember that the modifiers are being strung one after another. We have our initial tempo, then we have more tempo, more faster tempo, and then we have less. So in your interpretation, you have to decide how much less than the più mosso are you taking, Rhodesy. So now let's go back to, if this is our our dotted half note pulse, it's a little on the fast side, but it'll be easier the faster we take this. The faster we take this dotted half tempo, the easier it's going to be to feel what I'm about to show you. So we have to evenly divide this group of 8 across this. That's not too hard. It's like feeling them as 30-second notes. Let's play that a little bit more cleanly. Okay. Now, can you go back and can you play the left hand? So what we're doing here is, what we'd like to do is every other repetition, we feel one common pulse, and we can play 8 against that common pulse, and we can play 3 against that common pulse. Yeah? Then we can try to put it together. Yeah? The reason I like this and not doing the method I'm going to show you in a second, is that it keeps us feeling the line that's expressed in the melody, this line that's beautifully ornamented by Chopin. Yeah? That should never be metronomic. And we don't want to feel it as having these, we don't want to feel little micro pulses. And I'm personally of the opinion that we don't want to really train, here's like a metronome, and we can put a metronome on, and we know how those 8 exactly fit against these 3. No. Sometimes we have to do that. But I'd really recommend giving it plenty of time trying to do it with a common pulse. Because if you retain the common pulse, you're going to retain your expression. We don't want that to go away. If we do the next method, you're going to get a very precise mathematical representation of what happens in the polyrhythm, and you'll know exactly where every note goes. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it'll take quite a lot of space. Okay, Rhodesy, what is the first common subdivision of 8 and 3? What is the first common multiple of 8 and 3? And Fred, thanks for still being here. I'll come back to your question soon. And let's see, Rhodesy, your left hand notes. Pattern D, D, E flat, or E flat, E, F. It depends on where you are. Both of those exist. In this particular spot, there's a tie for the upper note, right? We're going to say restrike that note while you're doing this practice. But technically there's that tie. And then you play D flat, D natural, E. Okay. So, Rhodesy, the common multiple, the first common multiple of 8 and 3 is 24. That means this bar could be divided into 24 equal segments or equal subdivisions. And if you do that and you go through, the method is basically write out all 24 subdivisions and give them their own space on a piece of paper, etc., all the way down. And now, how do you need to divide those 24 to make 8 equal subdivisions? And how do you need to divide those 24 to make 3 equal subdivisions? And when you do that, you will get a precise number where each hand plays. The trouble is, the faster the polyrhythm is like this, you can only count those 24 numbers so quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You're going to have a really hard time speeding that up any faster. But it can give you a bit of a relationship between exactly how far in between those 2 notes is the D flat? How far in between those 2 notes is the D natural? So you'll get a perfect mathematical representation of that. For some people, this really works and it really sets them free. But the trouble is getting that to translate back to playing this in tempo. So... because we don't want to lose the expression. So, Rhodesy, those are the 2 things I can tell you about that specific bar. Primarily, though, find the common pulse, the dotted half-note pulse, and practice your group of 8 and practice your group of 3 against it. Rhodesy, they don't match on F and A flat. The second and third note matches. I don't know what bar you're talking about, Rhodesy. If you're saying the F and the D flat, oh, they're linked. That's So Rotzi, I wouldn't, it's a great source that you're citing, but I wouldn't link those notes together. I think that's it's a little bit of cheating the passage toward pairing things that aren't supposed to be paired in the first place. If Chopin wanted them paired, he would have written the rhythm exactly like that. And so it could be I don't even know if it's a great way to start learning the bar, because so that would be personally, I wouldn't follow that. And I wouldn't practice it too much that way either, because the notes shouldn't be paired. What I'm showing you on screen, by the way, is the Ecuyer edition. So it's about as text as it gets for Chopin. And sometimes Ecuyer does give a little dotted lines to show where things are supposed to line up, where the tradition and how Chopin taught, they would line up. And that is not present here. Let me see. Does he have any on this page? There are some alternate ties, but there are no other alignments given. But I've seen that in many Ecuyer editions. So, yeah, Rotzi, common pulse. And practice then as you're coming off of the common pulse. Let's go back to the score for a sec. Let's practice playing everything, left hand included, through here. And then as soon as you get to 84, don't play the left hand and have it come back in here in 85. So it'll be both hands together, and then you're focusing on feeling the common pulse, but playing a beautiful phrase. So and then we come back in. I would do that because that'll still keep you attuned to the melodic line, and that this is a variation from the first statement of the theme that happens earlier on the page. Okay. Rhodes, you had another question about the più mosso section. Let me come to that in a second. And Fred's question, so Fred, are you talking about the più mosso? Are you saying that's the B section? Phrasing the lowest sixth note of each group. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ha, great. Fred, I like to do that one time through my performance. I actually already filmed a performance of this piece because I'm planning on doing a course on it. And this gets stated, I believe, 6 times across the piece. If we count each statement of B as happening twice. So it happens twice and then twice more and then twice at the end, right? And yes, they're all different, and I play them all with different character and different execution. And in the second to last one, I like, and it's because there are a couple reasons I do that. But I really like playing the last statement of the A theme. Very big. And then when that repeats, it's extremely small. And a little slower. Let me keep going to show you the connection. So because I start voicing up the lower melody here, Then I keep yeah. I really like that. But there's a reason I do it there. And I've heard some other performers that use that approach where they bring out the thumb in different places throughout the piece. But I like it there because I like to coordinate it with bringing out the lower chromatic line in the end of the A section. Other people like to bring it out coming out of C, where we were in D flat, because the melody itself, that line, as Chopin brings it down for us, links perfectly back into that low note. So I think there are two really good places. Both of those places are really nice to bring out that lower line if you choose to. Yeah, cool. I think because we have to play it 6 times, I'm all for all of the variation we can find each of those times. Let's see, Road C. So your question was specifically about that part, but it was about clarity in the 4th and the 5th fingers. So, Road C, 2 things, alignment and wrist position, and especially a little bit of height over 4 and 5 are your friend. So first, let's talk about alignment. As we span the octave to the upper part, we need to make sure we don't stay stretched out and trying to grasp the lower note. Yeah? This is going to be a problem forever. No amount of practice is going to make that better, because we have to allow the hand to move to 4. And we have to I keep playing the wrong note there. So notice how, as I'm stretching to 4, I come across to support 5. And again. So there's a lot of this lateral wrist movement. We have to make that, and you have to allow the thumb to release. And while you practice at a slower tempo, I'd really encourage exaggerating the wrist movement. So every time. So that when 4 and then especially 5 have to play, we're not stretched at all, or as little as possible. So Road C, it's a really sweeping movement. It should feel like a real sweeping gesture, and the hand feels like it opens toward the thumb. It's not really bouncing, but the hand opens toward the thumb and opens and closes, and opens, closes, opens, closes, opens, closes. So anytime we're transitioning toward 4 and 5, the thumb's allowed to close and relax. And then as we get to 2 and 3 on the way down, it can open up again. The more you can practice that, when you do try to speed this up in tempo, not quite that much is still going to exist, but we need the hand to have that feeling of relaxation in order to strike 4 and 5 accurately and cleanly. So, as I play that, there isn't quite as much, right, retracting there, but you can still see there's a remnant of the wrist movement. And you say your hand gets cramped a bit on the 3rd pattern. 2, 3. Yeah, 3, 4, and 5 they're in close proximity to one another. Yeah. keep the hand in alignment. It'll be a disaster if you're out of alignment because 3 might double strike. But it's a piece of cake if you're in alignment. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thanks, Fred. You haven't even heard my recording yet. There must be still things that I'm playing today that are coming out. Great. Oh, Rhodesy, there's another practice technique you could use for this section, and that's doing a little bit of the plucking technique. And that's kind of pulling the fingers back. So playing with a finger retraction, especially 4 and 5. It's hard in that one bar. But again, we want to work on training finger articulation. And in this case, I don't think unlike what I talked about with Eric earlier, we don't want to train finger articulation with as much wrist, because that's going to be very foreign to how we perform it later. So instead, if we minimize that wrist movement, the vertical wrist movement, and instead play with more finger plucking, as if you're plucking a string. And then even that out and let the fingers be legato and work on the wrist movement. Okay. Let's see, Rhodesy, you're talking about the double note section. Is this back at the beginning of the piece? Must be. Rhodesy, which bars in particular are you talking about? And then I can make sure I'm talking about the right stuff. And then I'm going to answer Susie's question. And Joey, I see that. Well, I don't think I'll name any names, Joey, when I answer Susie's question. Oh, Rhodesy, now I know. Okay, so the repeated. Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay, so it's going from measure, let's put that back in red. Going from measure 37 into 38, we have the same pitch, and then the same pitch from 38 into 39. Okay. Rhodesy, I don't know what the fingering is in your score, but I prefer, some scores have an alternating fingering, and I believe Paderewski does. I believe, let me see. I believe Paderewski uses 3 and 4 there. And I think 3 and 4 again. Let me double check that. I think that's his fingering. I really dislike that. I like keeping my hand in the position I'm going to use for every single measure. I want to keep it there. And I find it much easier, instead of exchanging fingers, to use the same one twice. So I use 4-4 and 4-4 twice in a row. And it's just a little bounce then. So if we zoom in on that. Yeah. I like that. It keeps me from switching fingers and then causing another missed strike. I'm a fan of, the hand is already in the position I want it to be in for the next passage. I don't want to move it. And it's not so utterly fast that we can't do a repeat with the same finger there. It's only 2 pitches. Yeah. And yours says 4-3. Oh dear. I don't think I'd do that at all. 4-3. Oh, and then maybe you're playing 3-5. So 4-3-5. I don't prefer that either. So, obviously, these are some other great pianists, and it worked for them. So if it worked for them, and it probably works for a lot of people, know that you can use the same finger twice, and it's justified as well in the articulation that's marked. It's the end of a slur. So it actually shouldn't be, if anything, it shouldn't be legato connected. And Chopin's intention was not to connect them. It could be maybe connected with a little bit of pedal, but the slurs all show a disconnection there, which means it is absolutely fine to use the same finger twice. And we know that Chopin was a fan of using the same finger twice on the same pitch in many contexts. Yeah. So, Rotzi, long story short, if those repeated notes, if the fingering in your edition is bad, look for other editions and what they offer. And if they're all bad, I haven't seen an edition printed where it's the same finger twice, but I love it. I wouldn't play it any other way. The 4/4 is where the tension kicks in. Bounce. Can you play it twice and not worry about it? And if there's tension, then try to slow it down and bounce. And end there. End with a nice release. And practice that. Okay? Okay. Those were good questions, Rotzi. Look for my course. I was hoping to have it done before the end of the year, and just things got so overwhelming. So I have a recording that's going to come out hopefully in the next month, and the course on this piece will follow shortly after. I'm looking back for, let's see, Susie's question. So, Susie, I found it. You ask, do you have any older piano students? And by that, I mean 60 plus. I've been taking lessons 44 years and progressing, but I would love to hear your comments on the challenges you see with older students. So, yeah, Susie, I mentioned, I guess, like a half an hour ago, that, yeah, probably about 15-ish, 13 to 15 of my private students are retired adults with a whole huge varying levels of experience and previous piano knowledge from very beginner through to quite experienced. Okay. Let's boil this down into, I think, a couple things. The biggest challenge. Oh, Susie, 4 years. Okay, 4 years, not 44. That's a big difference. I think the biggest challenge that it's not really, let me see exactly what you asked again. Okay. I think one of the biggest challenges older students have, especially if they're relatively new learners, is a lack of theory understanding. And I'm laughing because Joey, I'm not singling you out. But quite a few of my older students that didn't have piano earlier, and even some that did have piano earlier in life, have very little theory knowledge. And the trouble with that is it catches up to you very quickly. It's not necessary to start, and it's not necessary to play through like all of the lesson book material, the method book material. And usually in the method books, there's some amount of theory that's discussed and thrown in. If you've worked through like the Alfred adult method books or the Faber adult method books, etc. There's some amount of theory, but I'm talking like the biggest hurdle is like chord and interval identification. And it usually starts to catch up really significantly after a couple years of study. And because there is so much, Rob agrees, because the adult brain can comprehend things so quickly. And now that's in like a logical sense, or in a just the knowledge behind music and the knowledge of what we're supposed to do and how we are supposed to approach practice. And most of my adult students, I'd say all of them, have possess an extremely quick grasping of concepts, which you don't see with kids all that often. Sometimes the really brilliant kids are like, bam, like you introduce it in the same day. They're like, oh, I could write a piece with that. But a lot of times other kids are no, and they don't really want to do the work to understand, but the adults usually get it. It's that when it comes to applying some of that knowledge to the piano, or just, doing the theory on paper and understanding it, like the concept of what's a major chord. I have a lot of adult students that could find one and they could play one and they can hear one and they can identify one. And I'm not talking like intermediate advanced students that would have trouble with this, but like beginner students that are relatively early, that's there. But then show them a piece of music where it's not written in root position, or it's not played in root position, or ask them to play a major chord in anything except root position, closed root position, like, but say that's D major, play it any other way. And what I'm looking for is there to be like an instant response to this, or this, or this. Yeah. And that really comes down to, I think, an understanding of theory, both on the page and at the keyboard. Because usually what happens is I'll ask for that and I'll get the root position chord and I'll say, do something else. And then my students go through the closed inversions, which is normal because that's what's presented in method books. And as soon as I say, okay, break out from that, like this is all D major. Well, how else can you express D major? And it's like this wall unintentionally goes up, right? And they're like, what do you mean? And it takes a long time to say, well, D major is 3 pitches. It's D, F sharp, and A. Play those 3 pitches anywhere. You could play them anywhere. Like this. That's D major. But it's that deconstructing of what was so quickly grasped, like that, and saying when we break it apart and we look for just the components, that is regularly missing. And the trouble with that is most theory books for adults and for students don't really talk about that early enough, I don't think. And then secondly, when we talk about repertoire and we're looking at a piece of music and we say, like, what chord is that? What chord are you playing? And a lot of times that's met with silence and long, long pauses that are full of thought where they're trying to figure out what it is. And so they're really working hard. It just takes an extremely long time to come to the answer. Finding that answer and having that answer be more, first, just quicker. Secondly, on the road to being almost as fast as an instinct is what we really are looking for. And when we get to the point where we can look at a page and say, let's use the Chopin that we were just talking about as an example. We'll pick something relatively, not easy, but easier than some of the examples in here. Okay, what chord is that? What harmony is being presented in the bar? Here's what it sounds like. How fast can you find it? Fred I was just seeing your note, but I was saying, Fred, don't answer. You know instantly. Let's see. And Fred, you say this chimes with your experience too. Yeah, Fred also teaches a lot of piano students. You say adult learners can find the joy in it more easily, the satisfaction of falling down the rabbit hole. I agree with that on the positive end of things. Okay, Rhodesy, you found it pretty quickly. A major with E in the bass. Broadway guy, Joey, you say A. Good. What inversion is that? A major with E in the bass. What inversion of A is it? I know there's a delay, but like that answer should have been that should have been super quick. Because it's not a complex chord. It's just a 3-note. It's just a triad. So this is a great example of a bar that's not hard to play, and that you would find something like just that bar in, you know, like early intermediate music. There would be might be something like that, not the rest of the waltz. Oh, Fred. Is it really a cadential 6/4? I suppose it is. Is it? Yeah. No. Yeah. So second inversion that Jess said, that was correct. And let's see, what would it be if we were in, let's see, if we're in the key of C sharp, a cadential 6/4 would have been C sharp, unless this is tonicizing something that I haven't. I mean, it's E dominant 7 to A, and now we have, yeah, we're tonicizing lots of different things. I suppose, Fred, you're right. It is, but it's not in the key of the piece. It's in a secondary key. So it's not a modulation. It's just a tonicization of A, briefly. So there's an example. So Fred, I mean, I didn't even have the rest of the score on the screen, and you could do that by ear because you know where the piece is going to go. And it took me a little bit longer to just look through the score and figure that out. But yeah, no, that's like yards and miles away from the problem that I'm really talking about, which is just what is that chord alone in and what inversion is it in? Because when we can start to talk about that in lessons or on a regular basis, or when you start to see your practice like that as informed by harmony. And I'm not even talking about like the function of the harmony, which is kind of where Fred and I started going. But just what harmony am I playing? When you understand that and you understand how the harmony is built, then that's really the point that music turns from a score that's got just a lot of notes on the page, and it becomes really like a language. And so you start to see that whole bars, all of these bars they all relate, they all have a relationship, they all have a feel, they all have a specific way they're built, and we come to an understanding about that. It makes it a lot easier to get to learn pieces to begin with, to sight read, to talk about even music in a lesson. And, you know, so oftentimes I'll say, especially if we're working on a piece and there are no measure numbers in the addition that we're working on, I'll say, look at the bar with a D flat major chord. And sometimes that gets, then we get like the deer in the headlights look, like, what bar? D flat what? And to me, it's like, it's so obvious that because I talk the music language all the time and I think it all the time, that's where I go. And it's just the simplest way to describe that bar. And then that turns into, I try to have that turn into a teaching moment where we say, okay, well, let's figure out where is D flat major and why is it D flat major? How is it built? Where is it happening? And then all those little moments hopefully add up and stack together into something that's more, a broader knowledge. So that's one problem. That's a big one because I see it all the time, like every day that I teach. The second biggest problem, I think, in this one, I won't take as long to describe. I think the second biggest problem, and I think I can say that most of my students have learned to accept a little bit of a difference in reality, their reality. But the second biggest problem would be having insanely high expectations of how fast and how quickly things should be learned. Like truly kind of outrageous expectations in some cases where, I mean, I've had a couple students feel like they should be able to, play a piece with authority and presence, after like a month studying it, let's say. If you're playing out of a method book and you're like level 1 or level 2, then absolutely yes. Yes. If you're just starting to play intermediate repertoire, no, it's not going to happen in a month. Yes, Joey. So just having a different expectation about how quickly progress should be made and understanding that it takes effort. I was at a doctor's appointment a week or two ago, and I was seeing a new doctor for the first time, and she was wearing a Juilliard like pullover, and it was embroidered with Juilliard. And of course, that sparked the conversation of like, oh, what is your relationship with Juilliard? Why do you own that? And why are you wearing it? And she said her son goes to Juilliard, plays the oboe. And we talked a little bit about music, and we talked about expectations. Now, of course, Juilliard, that's an extraordinarily high level of achievement to get in and to graduate and etc. But she said something really interesting, and that she was talking about having been through medical school and like a decade plus of medical school. And she was like, what my son has to do and the pressure and the amount of focus and the practice and the constant testing and judgment from everybody. She said, it's so hard. She said, it's so much harder than what I went through in medical school, which is really interesting because I don't think anybody here feels that way. You're all feels the way I'm going to describe. You're all interested in music and you're here for good reasons. But I think sometimes people are like, oh, playing music is fun and it's just and all this, it's easy and fun and we just learn blah, blah, blah. And music is hard. It's really hard. And I think, sometimes it's difficult to communicate just how much patience we have to have as students of music. And then I'm talking about everyone, my adult students, younger students, professionals. Just have patience and enjoy the process. If you can enjoy the process, then you'll look forward to practicing every day because, I still learn new things every day I sit down to practice. I still learn to have an even deeper enjoyment of what I'm doing and what I'm playing and why I'm here. I think everybody can have that. And if we break out of the mindset that there's this like end that we need to achieve or that we need to get to, and we just say, I'm here to be in the journey and to take the journey and to just experience it and say, hey, every step, there's this really cool thing. So, Rotzi, you say if music was easy, everyone would be Mozart. Yeah, true. As performers, everybody would be Long Long or Yuja or Daniel Trifonov or Martha Argerich, etc. There's a reason why those people are like one in almost a billion. Yeah, Susie. It takes years, much like an Olympic gymnast. Yes. Yeah. That's funny you say that, Susie. When I was taking lessons as a teenager, my parents said the same thing to my teacher at the time. That when they were kind of being relatively newly exposed to the world of classical music. And they were like, it's just insane. Like the perfection and the repeated movement and everything has to be perfect. And then you get one opportunity. You get one audition. It's like being at the Olympics. You get one shot at your routine that you've practiced for years for. And if the slightest thing goes wrong, you could be amazing and you won't win. You might not medal. And it might not be down to your talent even. There might be other reasons why it doesn't happen. In any case, that was a great question to wrap up with. I guess just real quickly for SA opera singers, Johan, how do you stay fond of a piece when you've put so much time and repetition into it? Always look for new things in that repetition. And always be trying your utmost to find the beauty in the line and in the phrase and in the harmony. If every time that you play something, sometimes our practice needs to be about some mechanical repetition or some technical development. But then take a step back and play it and say, isn't this gorgeous? This is amazing. And what makes it amazing? Those two bars, I wish that note was in tune. I'm so sorry. But that's usually when I play this, that figure of... It's just so gorgeous, and it's just two notes. And every time I play this waltz, I feel that and I think about that, and it's like, oh, isn't that beautiful? And then I try my darndest to make that phrase as gorgeous as I possibly can. And it's just two notes. And now expand that into all the other notes across the entirety of a piece. Okay. Oh, good stuff. Susie, so you say, do I see students with inherent talent or relatively successful pianists who just worked hard at it? The inherent talent happens occasionally. Yeah, it happens occasionally, but it's not common. And sometimes, yeah, those students, they generally progress extremely fast. Sometimes those are people, if they're kids, they end up being the people that go to music school because the competition is so fierce. You have to make tremendous progress by the time you're, 13, 14 years old to have a chance. And usually, if there isn't some level of talent, there isn't an amount of work that can make up for it with the people you have to compete against for the very limited spots. So when I was in college, I had a 4-year-old student who never played the piano with me before, started day one in a method book with me, and after a year was playing Preludes and Fugues by Bach. That's insane. That was really cool to be his teacher. It was a wild ride. And I was just like blown away the stuff he would come back finished and playing really well after just a week after week after week after week. And he never hit a wall. And I was like, this is crazy. And I kept giving him bigger and bigger and bigger challenges. And every week he'd meet it. And not just meet it, but like overwhelmingly be successful. Cool. So, Rhodesy, the best way to support the channel is to sign up for Next Level Pianist Academy. There should be a link in the description below. And yeah, then you get a ton of stuff also. So Rhodesy, all my courses are in that membership group, and we do meetings like this, except they're live, so you can play live if you want to, and we can test things out in person. I have to go. I'm really late in getting to lunch. So this has been a great stream. Happy New Year, everybody. And don't forget, we'll have another one of these in 2 weeks at the end of January. I don't know what the date of that is, but 2 weeks from today, we'll have another one, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 12 p.m. Eastern USA, 5 p.m. London. I think I got all of those. If you haven't clicked the like button, please click the like button. And yeah, practice. Have happy practicing. And I'll see you all next time, okay? Thanks all for being here. Bye-bye.